You've heard it 100 times. The first 100,000 is the hardest. Save that, and the rest takes care of itself. It's the most repeated advice in personal finance. Your uncle said it. Every finance channel says it. And it's a lie. Not because the number doesn't matter. It does. But because almost nobody tells you what actually happens on the way there, or what happens after. And that gap between the advice and the reality is where most people quietly give up. So let's decode it. Welcome to Wealth Decoded. Let's start with where this idea came from. A famous investor once said that the first 100,000 is a bitch, but you have to do it. And he was right. The problem isn't the quote. The problem is what people turned it into. They turned it into a finish line, a magic number, a gate that opens, and suddenly money starts working. That's the lie. Because there is no gate. Nothing happens at 99,900, and nothing magical happens at 100,001. The number is arbitrary. It's a round number in one currency, on one continent, at one point in history. So why does everyone repeat it? Because something real is hiding behind it. Something true. And that something is far more interesting than the number itself. Let's pull it apart. Here's the first truth. The first 100,000 isn't hard because of the money. It's hard because of who you have to become to get it. Think about it. To save 100,000, you need 3 things at once. You need to earn more than you spend, consistently, for years. You need to resist every temptation that says you deserve it now. And you need to keep going when nothing seems to be happening. That last one is the killer. Because for the first few years, almost nothing happens. You save and save. And the number crawls. There's no dopamine, no applause. Nobody claps when you don't buy the car. Just a slow, boring line going up. Most people quit right there. Not because they can't do the math. The math is simple. They quit because they can't handle the silence. So the first 100,000 isn't a savings challenge. It's a character test. And that's the part nobody puts in the quote. Now let's talk about what actually happens with the math, because this is where it gets interesting. Imagine you save $1,000 a month. No investing yet, just saving. It takes you a little over 8 years to reach 100,000. 8 years. That's a long time to do something invisible. Now let's add returns. Say your money earns 8% a year. Suddenly, you get there in about 6.5 years. You just saved yourself almost 2 years of your life. Not by working harder, not by earning more, by letting your money do part of the work. But here's the twist. In those first years, the returns barely matter. In year 1, 8% of your money is almost nothing. A few $100s. Your savings are doing 99% of the work. And that's exactly why it feels so pointless at the start. You're carrying the entire weight yourself. Compounding is real. It's just asleep. And it stays asleep for longer than anyone warns you. So when does it wake up? Watch this. At $100,000, an 8% return is $8,000 a year. Read that again. $8,000 without you lifting a finger. That's a decent bonus at most jobs, earned by doing absolutely nothing. That's the first moment in your life where your money contributes something real. Not life-changing, but real. It's the first paycheck you didn't work for. For the first time, you have a silent partner. And that partner never sleeps, never complains, never asks for a raise, never calls in sick. He just shows up every single year and gets a little stronger. Now here's what actually happens next. And this is the part the quote gets right, but for the wrong reason. Remember, it took you 8 years to save your first 100,000. Your second 100,000? About 4 years. Your third? Around 3. And it keeps shrinking. Why? Because now you're not alone. Your money is pushing alongside you. The further you go, the more it pushes. Picture pushing a car uphill by yourself. That's the first 100,000. Now picture someone getting out and pushing with you. That's the second. By the fourth, there's a small engine running. Eventually, something strange happens. Your money starts earning more than you save, and then more than you earn. That's the crossover. That's when the game truly changes. And almost nobody gets to see it because they quit while pushing alone. Let me show you the full arc. Say you keep saving that 1,000 a month at 8%. Year 8, you cross 100,000. Year 12, you're at 200. Year 16, 350. Year 20, over 550,000. Look at what just happened. In the first 8 years, you added 100,000. In the last 4, you added over 200,000. Same monthly deposit. Same person. The difference is that your money is now doing most of the lifting. And here's the number that should stay with you. Of that 550,000, you only deposited 240. The rest showed up on its own. More than half of your wealth was built by the partner you hired at year 1. So yes, the first 100,000 is the hardest. But not because of some magic gate. It's the hardest because it's the only stretch where you're pushing the car completely alone. But here's the bigger lie, the one nobody talks about. Most people hear this advice and think it's a savings problem. So they cut coffee. They cancel subscriptions. They budget every cent. They optimize their grocery list. And they still take a decade to get there. Because saving alone has a ceiling. You can only cut so much. There's a floor to your expenses, and it's called being alive. Meanwhile, there's no ceiling on what you can earn. None. Let's put numbers on it. If you make 60,000 and save 15%, that's 9,000 a year. 11 years to 100,000. Now, if you make 120,000 and save 30%, that's 36,000 a year. Under 3 years. Same discipline, same person, same coffee. Completely different timeline. 8 years of your life, gone or gained. The difference wasn't the budget, it was the income. So the real advice isn't save your first 100,000. It's build the earning power that makes 100,000 inevitable. One of those you can do forever. The other has an expiration date. Let me make it human. Picture 2 people. Same age, same city. The first one becomes a master of budgeting. He tracks every cent. He knows the price of everything. He saves 15% of a modest salary religiously. The second one is messier. He still enjoys his life. But he spends 2 years getting brutally good at something people pay for. His income doubles. He saves the same percentage, but of a much bigger number. 10 years later, the first one is proud, tired, and at 80,000. The second one crossed 100,000 years ago, and he's not tired at all. The first one optimized the small number. The second one grew the big one. Both worked hard. Only one worked on the right variable. And there's a third layer, the one that separates people who reach 100,000 from people who keep going. Because reaching it is not the same as keeping it. Something happens when you finally hit that number. You feel rich. For the first time, you have real money in the account, real options. And that's exactly when the trap opens. Because now you can afford things. The car, the upgrade, the trip you postponed for years. You earned it, right? You suffered for this. And just like that, the 100,000 you spent 8 years building disappears in 18 months. This is the quiet way most people restart from zero. Not by losing money, not by a crash, by spending the proof that they could build it. The 100,000 was never the reward. It was the receipt. So let's get to the real question. If it's not a finish line, what is it? Here's the honest answer. 100,000 is the first proof. Proof that you can earn more than you spend. Proof that you can be patient. Proof that you can do something boring for years without applause. Proof that you can keep a promise to yourself, and that proof is worth more than the money. Because the money can be lost. The person you became to get it cannot. That's why people who lose everything often rebuild fast, and why lottery winners often lose it all. One earned the skill, the other only got the number. The number left, the skill stayed. And think about what that proof actually unlocks. Once you've done it once, the second time isn't scary. You know the silence ends. You know the line eventually bends. You've felt it. That's why the second 100,000 isn't just faster on paper. It's faster in your head. You stop asking if it works. You already watched it work. Now, let's talk about what actually happens to your head, because this is the part almost nobody mentions. At around 100,000, your relationship with money quietly changes. Small expenses stop scaring you. A flat tire stops being a crisis. You stop checking your balance out of anxiety. You start making decisions from calm instead of fear. And that calm is the real superpower. Because scared people make terrible financial decisions. They sell at the bottom. They chase quick wins. They take bad jobs because they can't say no. They stay in rooms they should have left. 100,000 buys you the ability to say no. No to the client who disrespects you. No to the job that's slowly killing you. No to the deal that smells wrong. And saying no is how you protect your time. Notice what we're really talking about here. Not the car, not the watch. The ability to walk away. That's what the number actually buys. Which brings us back to the whole point. The goal isn't more money. The goal is more life. So what should you actually do? Let's make it concrete. 5 things. First, stop treating it as a savings goal. Treat it as an income goal. Every dollar you add to your earning power shortens the timeline more than any budget cut ever will. Second, invest from day one. Don't wait until you have 100,000 to start. The habit matters more than the amount, and your first years of returns are the seeds of everything later. Third, automate it. Take the decision away from your future self, because your future self will be tired, tempted, and very creative with excuses. Fourth, expect the silence. Know that for years it will feel like nothing is happening. That's not failure. That's the cost of entry. Everyone who made it walked through that same silence. And fifth, when you hit it, do not celebrate by spending it. Celebrate by increasing it. The people who make it big are the ones who treat 100,000 as a starting balance, not a trophy. Let's bring it home. The first 100,000 is a lie. Not because it's not hard. It is. But because everyone sells it as a finish line when it's really a filter. It filters out the impatient. It filters out the people who need applause. It filters out the ones who quit during the silence. And what's on the other side isn't a magic gate. There's no confetti, it's just you. Slightly different, slightly harder to break, with a small, silent partner who works while you sleep. That's it. That's the whole secret. Not the 100,000, the person who earns it. So don't chase the number. Build the machine that makes the number inevitable, and then keep going. Because 100,000 was never the destination. It was the first sign that you finally understand the game. Thanks for spending some time with us today. If this changed how you see that number, subscribe and stay with us. We'll see you back here next time.